Okay, so this is the last time I see you guys until after fall break because I don't have you guys on Monday, and I feel like someone who was not a teacher made this schedule, not thinking about the fact that like I wouldn't see you guys at all and just suffer. But we are gonna have just a work day tomorrow, so there won't be a video tomorrow, because all you would be doing is watching nothing. So you'll work on your choice speech annotations. Well, not your annotations, those should be done. Outline and body paragraph on your own. Maybe you're working on your annotations. So do that. I will not see you when we come back, but on Tuesday with the other class, we'll be projecting some of their body paragraphs to really analyze what they are doing well, what they could improve. And so you'll want to tune into that because I think that is super helpful feedback for you to be getting on your own paragraphs, although I'm really sorry that we don't get to do that together. I'm sure you're very sorry too. I'll miss you. And then I will see you, I believe, at the beginning of term 2. So who knows what that's going to look like. I don't know. I've kind of planned based on the phase 2 model, but I think it'll be basically the same either way, because either you'll be watching it or you'll be here for it. Woohoo! Okay. I'll try to, hopefully they'll let you know when they let us know. So, if you have questions, though, during that long break, just let me know. Email me. We can meet via Zoom. I've had a few students do that to just go over things, because sometimes it's hard to explain in an email what you're looking at. All of your late work, so some of you are a little bit behind, is due on the 20th, and that's because I physically can't grade everything if everyone gives it to me on the last day of the term before the term ends. So I haven't been taking off points for late work because everything sucks. Oh, did this totally tilt bad? Yeah, they're like looking at that side. Sorry, video. Sorry. Okay. But I need it by the 20th so that I can grade it. Okay? Questions with that? Non-fiction book. I will put that on next week's module, so you'll still want to look on Canvas for stuff even though you're not here. You just need to tell me what % of that book you read, and then I will give you that % of points. So you can turn that in by the last day of the term, which is the 26th. So some of you may have lots of reading to do over your fall break. I too will be reading. How exciting is that? I'm actually pretty excited about it because I feel like I don't get any reading done whilst I am grading. So, anyway. Cool. Any questions? Excellent. Today we're going to continue with our fun conversation about political campaign ads. We're going to look at ads from this election. It was very exciting, my first period. I don't know. I think these are interesting. We're going to watch 2 that are from the Democrat side and then 2 from the Republican, so that is equal. And I just think that they're really relevant and fun to watch because you guys have a lot more context for these ads than some of the ones from the 60s when maybe your parents weren't even born yet. So, yeah, read. Oh, sorry. Sometimes I see like phantom hands or like any motion. Anyway, I'm glad you got that itch. So, okay, on Canvas, there is on the overview or underneath it, the living room candidate analysis part 2. So last time we did part 1. This is part 2. So you're going to click on that. And we're going to fill out, just like we did in the other ones for these 4 ads, you're going to look at the rhetorical situations, the context. So general context for all of these ads, right, is the 2020 election, or presidential election more specifically. Some of them, there's a little bit more context beyond that. Like this first one is an interview that Trump gave. The second one is a series of like stuff that Joe Biden said. The third one is again, something that nobody knew was based on something Trump said. And then this last one, just looking at a pattern behavior for Biden. Yeah, I'm excited. So you're going to pay attention to the situation, your overall impression. So we'll watch each of these at least twice. Your initial close readings, looking at the details, choices, and patterns you observe both visually and then rhetorically, the strategies. The argument being made, so the purpose, and then whether we think it's effective or ethical. Then at the end of the 4 ads, you're going to tell me which you thought was most effective and why, and which one you thought was least effective and why. Okay? Excited? This is good stuff. I'm excited. And I think it's important to look at these because next voting election, you're gonna be voting. So being thoughtful about who you vote for and while you're watching these is important. So get stoked. Alright. So the first one we're watching is It Is What It Is. Here we go.
Control. I'll tell you what, Howell, 1,000 Americans are dying a day. They are dying. That's true. And it is what it is. It is what it is. It is what it is. It is what it is.
Okay. Initial impressions on this ad. What do you got? Okay, let's start with just what's the purpose of this ad?
Make Trump look bad.
To make Trump look bad, right? So this is definitely pro-Biden, kind of a smear campaign ad, right, where you're talking bad about the other person. Okay, what do you notice going on? What are some choices they make visually or rhetorically? Yes, him.
Everything's in black and white.
Okay, everything that is in black and white. What are they showing in those black and white images? Hospitals, right? Things going badly with the coronavirus. Okay, did you notice which part was color? Trump. In the initial interview, he's in color, and then everything else are these black and white images. Why do you think they do that? Remember, you get a participation grade. Just loosen your tongues. Why show Trump in his interview in color and then everything else is black and white with these images of hospitals?
It kind of provides like he's alive and but is like dead or dying.
Okay. He gets to be alive like these lively colors while they're like suffering and dead. Yeah.
Maybe just to kind of show like he's in his own little space.
Okay.
You know, like he's not worried about the people dying, and black and white shows how it's in a different situation.
Yeah, it definitely creates that separation there. Like, here's this president over here in like this happy land, doing whatever, and then he's not acknowledging the suffering of these people in the hospital. They're black and white. Anything else? Okay, let's watch it again. It's so exciting.
I think it's under control. I'll tell you what, Howell, 1,000 Americans are dying a day. They are dying. That's true. And it is what it is. It is what it is. It is what it is. It is what it is.
Okay. What do you notice the second go around? Yeah, Larissa.
They repeat the phrase "it is what it is" like 2 times to emphasize that he's not really doing anything to change. Like that's just it. He
Yeah.
isn't changing anything.
He doesn't change anything, and what's happening while that it is what it is, what's showing behind it.
The people suffering.
Yeah, so definitely like his kind of callous phrase, right? It is what it is, he's not doing anything to change it, all of this suffering. And did you notice the progression of the pictures? They start with like hospital, like critical care, then like they go into the ambulance, the doctors are being surgical, there's someone there, and then all of a sudden there's like these boxes in it, which are coffins, right?
Yeah.
So these are like kind of cardboardy coffins. So it's like they start out sick and now they're dying, and like definitely progresses worse as he's like, it is what it is. It is when by doing nothing, bad things are happening. Anything else? Okay. Effective, ethical, what do you guys think? Yes.
I'd say it's neither.
Okay.
It's not ethical because I feel like it cut off Donald Trump's quote and it's using his words probably in a way that aren't completely accurate.
We don't have a lot of context for it, right?
Right.
So it's hard to tell how the accuracy or like all of that. And like you can see there's like a ... in one of these quotes. Anyway, so meaning that they moved stuff. Anything else? Ethical, effective, yeah.
So it's obviously like their purpose is to like they're pro-Biden, so like it's definitely effective because it puts Trump in a bad light.
Okay, good, so they're, you know, accomplishing their purpose, putting him in a bad light. Anything else? Okay, let's watch another ad. So, this ad, is Biden, wait, wrong one. Oh yeah, I made this like meme. I thought it was pretty funny. Okay, anyway. So, the second one, is Biden in his own words. So, I keep pushing the wrong links, just pay attention. Okay.
Unlike the African American community, with notable exceptions, the Latino community is an incredibly diverse community. You have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, and you ain't black. Poor kids are just as bright and just as talented as white kids. My Democratic colleagues don't like me saying this. I think the two-party system is good for the South and good for the Negro, good for the black. And other than the fact that they still call me boy, I think they've changed their mind. They're gonna put you all back in chains. The first sort of mainstream American who was articulate and bright and clean and white-looking guy. I mean, that's a story for a bit.
It was hurtful to hear you talk about the reputation of two United States senators who built their reputation and career on the segregation of race in this country.
Apologize for what? For what?
What are your initial impressions? There's lots to talk about there.
Very confused.
Okay, you're very confused. Why?
Because like they kept throwing things at me and I was like, wait, I can't really hear this and I don't understand what's going on.
Okay, so it's kind of like a barrage of information. Yeah, Hannah.
Sound effects they were using were very loud.
Okay, yeah.
Flash.
The camera flash, right? Like all these big sounds, kind of disorienting. What else? What did you notice about those sound effects? Yes.
They're almost what you might find in a horror film.
Yeah, totally like that, especially that laugh, like definitely like a horror show. You're like, okay, if I vote for Biden, we'll be a horror show. Great. Yes. What else? Yes, Leo.
Every vote of Biden's was related to race,
Okay, and why do you think they would do that? Like, why pick those ones?
to show like he's racist or something.
Yeah. Typically, like, who do the Democrats vote? Like, who do they expect to vote for them? What groups? Do you guys notice?
Yeah.
Typically, it's minority groups that are trying to get infringed populations to vote for them. So that's things like minorities, the women's vote. So anyone who has felt kind of like slighted or marginalized, they try to get those votes typically. And so by saying these things about race, what does that do to people who might vote for him? They're like, ugh, he doesn't actually believe that stuff. So like these minority groups who would typically vote Democrat might be like, wait, what? Right? So they're definitely trying to create that narrative. Other stuff you notice? Yeah. Joe.
It seems like it's almost like a rebuttal to the Trump one because they're using quotes and like more than one quote, they're using like multiple quotes and putting in like the same sort of like setting that they did for Trump.
Okay. Yeah, similar tactics, right, where they're taking something that they said, their own words, right, and then imposing them over pictures or creating kind of this smear campaign around those words. Okay, let's watch it again because it's just so fun. Tell me what else you've noticed in your second go round. And especially pay attention to the kinds of things that he's saying and the pictures that are being used. I feel scared already.
Unlike the African American community, with notable exceptions, the Latino community is an incredibly diverse community. You have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, and you ain't white. Poor kids are just as bright and just as talented as white kids. My Democratic colleagues don't like me saying this. I think the two-party system is good for the South and good for the Negro, good for the black. And other than the fact that they still call me boy, I think they've changed their mind. They're gonna put you all back in jail. First, sort of mainstream American who was articulate and bright and clean and white-looking guy. I mean, that's the story for a bit.
It was hurtful to hear you talk about the reputation of two United States senators who built their reputation and career on the segregation of race in this country. I think for the
Apologize for what? For what?
That last sound though, so good. Okay, what did you notice on the second go around? Yeah, Joseph.
There's that creepy picture of Biden that keeps showing up with that smile.
Like, it's got like this Joker face on. You're like, ah! I'm like totally freaked out. Like they picked like the worst pictures, right? Some of them look like his eyes are shut, or he's like, or whatever. What does that remind you? Kind of mugshots, or maybe paparazzi, right? Why do you think that they picked those photos coinciding with like those snapshots? Like, my first class said it was like he's been caught, right? He's been caught saying this stuff, like, and at the end they're like the Joe Biden they've been hiding from you. So it's like they've caught these things that are really going on, but he portrays something different, right? Other things you noticed going on in this one? Yeah, Joe.
They like put like closed captions on like the race-related quotes.
Okay, the stuff that they really want to drive home, like especially the race-related ones, they type out for us so that we can see. We're not just confused like some of the other ones, but we're definitely hearing what he's saying. Yeah, Hannah.
They don't have pictures of just Joe Biden.
Will you say it a little louder?
They don't have pictures of just Joe Biden. They have pictures of
Okay. Yeah, they have pictures of other people too. Who else? Who else's voice? We hear Joe Biden's mostly, but then who else?
Kamala Harris.
Okay, why did they put Kamala in here?
Because isn't she his renegade?
Yeah, and yet in this phrase, what is she saying? Say louder.
She's criticizing him.
She's criticizing him, right? Why would that be a good tactic?
It kind of like provides like doubt for people
Yeah.
because they're like, oh well, she's kind of doubtful of him, but she's his running mate, so that's kind of.
Like, oh, she's talking bad about him, like, that's not a good sign. She's supposed to like him, right? Now they were running against each other before this, right? But she said that about him. So they're like putting that in there, like, look, ooh, she doesn't even like him. Anything else you guys want to say about this one? Do you think, oh yeah, go ahead, Joe.
I think that this like really appeals to minorities because that's like Trump's like smallest
Supporting group.
Yeah, supporting group. And so I think that it is like a pretty smart tactic because it's like specifically for minorities.
Yeah, they're really aware of that audience and kind of trying to attack one of those groups that are going to probably vote mostly Democratic. Although, like, I'm really bad at politics, so like if I'm saying something that is not true, please let me know. But as far as I know, historically, minorities, they try to get that vote from the Democrat side a lot. Anything else? Yeah, Joseph.
Well, it's really black and dark, and I'll find that Biden has these dark secrets.
Yeah, they're dark secrets. I am scared of the darkness of Joe Biden and that crazy face. Those pictures just make me laugh. I'm like, who came up with these? He looks psycho. Okay, anything else? Ethical or effective? What do you guys think? Yeah.
I definitely don't think it's ethical.
Okay, why not?
But I don't think any political ads are ethical, so.
Yeah, I feel like they tried to give you tiny snippets So they're definitely, they know they don't have a lot of time, so like, what do they go for? Emotional appeal, right? That fear mongering, like, if you do this, you will die. Okay, anything else? Okay, we'll watch our next ad. This one is, what does it say? Nobody knew, okay. Wrong one. I think it's this one.
The president is calling for a boycott of a big American company, Goodyear, Ohio. And so I...
Not that one, sorry. Nope. Gonna find it. I thought it was this one for sure.
The president is calling for...
Nobody knew there'd be a pandemic or an epidemic of this proportion. Nobody knew there'd be a pandemic or an epidemic of this proportion.
Okay, short and sweet. What do you guys notice? Beckett, what's something you noticed?
They just had a bunch of different like, points and like text stuff, like big text to kind of show the importance of it, I guess.
Okay, so they have just a bunch of points that they've written out showing like the importance. Yeah, Reed.
I feel like this one was a lot better than the first one because they actually had facts, at least some, instead of for the first one, they just had a sentence from Trump's speech or whatever and just repeating it over and over again.
Yeah, so this one has like more data or logos go around, or facts, talking points with definitely less emotional. Yeah.
I like how the picture of Trump was like him turning his back on, like that.
Yeah.
Like he was turning his back on the U.S.
Yeah, it's like symbolic in a way, right? Like Joe Biden and Obama are both facing the camera, and then there's Trump like, I turned my back on you, both physically and like, you know, symbolically. Okay, what else? Okay, let's watch it again.
Nobody knew there'd be a pandemic or an epidemic of this proportion.
Okay, what else? So in the when, where like they're preparing and stuff, that is from whose administration? From who?
Obama's.
Obama's, right? And like who was Obama's vice president? Biden. So they made sure to put Biden in that picture, right? Thus associating Biden with these decisions. In Trump, he's alone, right? And that's an interesting choice because I think a lot of people actually really like Pence. Like Pence in that debate was pretty kind in comparison to Trump's outbursts and such, right? And so by emphasizing, look, Joe Biden is a part of this team that already made great decisions, and then like Trump is alone, turning his back on you, that could be an interesting rhetorical choice that they're making. What about the colors that they show? So they've got like, they prepared us, I guess it's kind of harder to see in this one, like funding cut versus did this. What are the colors that they're using on those? Okay, good. And especially in this, the blue creates what kind of a feeling for you? Comfort and maybe some peace, calm, right? And then red, what kind of feelings does that invoke in you? No feelings. You have no feelings. Seems like it, but it's definitely like more angry, more like fear. I feel like invoking. Not really.
I kind of associate this with like a Target, you know, and
Okay.
like you're dead kind
Yeah.
of thing.
Okay,
I
yeah.
don't know, I just.
Kinda, right? Like they cut something X, dead. Not like positive for sure, right? Definitely more negative. Do you think it was effective, this little dot 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 line as it goes down to Trump? Okay, why did you, like, why did they do that? You guys are more than my first class and yet quieter than my first class. Who's on top? Who's on top? Biden, Obama. Then it scrolls down to Trump, kind of symbolic of like, look, we're better. And you just scroll down, then it scrolls back up. So you're like looking up to the light, and then he crashes it down. Okay. Anything else you want to say about these ads? Yeah, Joe.
I think another thing is that like it makes Trump look stupid, and then it like makes the audience think that like all this would be so different, and that it'd be a lot better if he would have kept the plan.
Yeah.
If Biden was in control.
Yeah, they're kind of looking at that thing he said where nobody knew, and he's like, no, people knew. You just chose to ignore, right? And showing that he's kind of an idiot. So like, the reason you didn't know is because you didn't do all these things that were being done in the administration before you. Do you think, yeah, Reed.
They also made it seem like Trump did like really nothing for the pandemic by saying like he just ignored it and like, but really he actually did stuff that they kind of like.
But they're not gonna tell you that, right? Yeah. So they ignored anything positive he did for it, and instead were like, look at all the stuff that he did that made it so terrible. Don't vote for him. Anything else? Okay, last ad. This one, some more really great pictures of Biden. So get excited. This one.
He went, he became president, I didn't go, and I'm still vice president. And in addition to that, we have to make sure that we are in a position that we are. Think about it. Everybody has known from day one how smart, how bright Hillary is. Everybody knows how tough she is. You know, the rapidly rising I don't know. To be successful, I sincerely hope some of you become millionaires and billionaires. I mean that. But engage. You know, there's during World War II, where Roosevelt came up with a thing that was totally different than he called
He got old.
Yeah. That face.
Commander-in-Chief. It's more than just a job. Since taking office, President Donald Trump has rebuilt our military, repaired a broken VA, and eliminated Soleimani, al-Baghdadi, ISIS, the world's deadliest terrorists, brought to justice. Today, America is safer and stronger than ever. Because to President Trump, it's more than just a job. It's a sworn duty to keep America safe.
I'm Donald J. Trump, and I approve this message.
Okay.
Oh my god.
Yeah, like what? I feel like they're like two different ads.
Give
They're
me a
just
whole
like,
minute. Give me a whole minute to like compartmentalize
Yeah.
things. What the heck?
yeah, I kind of felt the same way. I was like, okay, here's this one ad where they're making this very distinct point, right? And then also Trump is like, what? Right? So weird choice, but I'm like, maybe they just like, maybe they had to come up with like a 2-minute ad for some network, and they're like, just throw that in there. It's fine, whatever. What choices do you notice being made, or what are things that you would want to notice in this ad? Yeah.
Is it black and white for the first part or not?
Let's scroll back. I think the past is color.
Okay.
Present
Is black and white.
black dulled, right?
Okay.
Maybe not quite black and white, but like Yeah, interesting choice. Why do you think they do that?
I think because now he's not like as good as he used to be mentally.
Yeah.
So they're trying to really show that in the colors too.
So just like he was bright here, he has been
Dull.
dull mentally as well. Okay, yes,
With
Sandy.
that, I feel like it shows his age. Like when you think of black and white TV, like it's super old and stuff.
Yeah.
Showing that in black and white shows that he's getting old.
Cool, yeah, definitely that age, kind of ageism almost. Okay, what else? Yes, Hannah.
When we go to the Trump thing, that's in color.
It's in like really bright color. It's like a sunny day, right? They're outside. Look at that. That's like beautiful, majestic even. Okay. Yes.
I think that's kind of a show that he's like strong and capable.
Yeah.
Mentally too.
Yeah. I think that's the only connection I can really see is like, ooh, look at, because they're like strength, he,
Right.
like in all these strong things, and then they make Biden look like this enfeebled old man. Like that face is just like, I mean, I probably look like that in any given photo, like, if they snap it of me, but yes.
So what I kind of noticed too is that mostly it was Joe Biden talking a lot, but in like that last little bit,
Uh-huh.
it was President Trump. He was going and doing all of these things, and he was doing actions more than speaking.
Oh, okay, I like that. Yeah, it's like action. He's making stuff happen. He may say crazy crap, but they're not talking about that, right? Like, but what he does, right? I particularly love this side by side where his face gets more like what as time progresses. So that's another face they put in there. He's kind of fumbling through his words. Any other choices you noticed? We only watched this once. Let's watch it again. It's so good.
Okay.
All of these ads are just really exciting.
He became president, I didn't go, and I'm still vice president. And in addition to that, we have to make sure that we are in a position that we are. Think about it. Everybody is known from day one how smart, how bright Hillary is. Everybody knows how tough she is. You know, the rapidly rising and with I don't know. To be successful, I sincerely hope some of you become millionaires and billionaires. I mean that. But engage. You know, there's a during World War II, where Roosevelt came up with a thing that was totally different than he called the
Kind of sentimental, sad music.
Commander-in-Chief. It's more than just a job. Since taking office, President Donald Trump has rebuilt our military, repaired a broken VA, and eliminated Soleimani, al-Baghdadi, ISIS, the world's deadliest terrorists brought to justice. Today, America is safer and stronger than ever. Because to President Trump, it's more than just a job. It's a sworn duty to keep America safe.
I'm Donald J. Trump, and I approve this message.
Okay. Our bipolar ad. Yes, Larissa.
When they show Biden before, they kind of like show how he's more enthusiastic, even talking about Hillary.
Yeah.
Like he's very enthusiastic, calling her strong and stuff like that. But then when it's himself, it's like he doesn't like trying to show that maybe he doesn't really care.
Okay. Yeah.
And also when they show like this last part, Trump, maybe like trying to make him seem like he's the hero.
Yeah.
Like making America strong. And it's not like it's a duty to him and stuff like that.
Yeah, this isn't just a job, it's a duty, and like you want like heroes to do their duty, and like, I don't know. I think definitely like maybe they're implying by putting these together that Joe Biden doesn't think that it's a duty. He just wants the job. But more than that, like you need someone who's strong, and it's like so much more than just, okay, he can do this job, whatever. It's like, no, there's like a lot more to it that he can't do. Yeah. Other thoughts? Yes, Anissa.
So they use music during Trump's, like, it's very upbeat and something you'd hear maybe a Marvel, some like
Yeah.
Captain America, and he's kind of this hero.
He's the next Iron Man, right? And then Joe Biden is just him like talking. So we feel that like music does so much. Have you ever seen like a scene from a movie with like out music and then like watched it with like all of a sudden like in like a horror film it's not quite as scary unless you have like that like creeping up on you, right? And then you're like, ah, right? But without it, just kind of like, oh, meh, sad. Triumphant Marvel hero, President Trump. Anything else? Cool. Yeah. So sad. His eyes are closed in a lot of this, I feel like. Alright, there they are, kind of squinty. Bride. Okay. Cool. Good ads. Good to be informed as you're watching. Which one did you think of the four was the most effective, and which did you think was the least effective? Yeah.
I think the last one was the most effective.
Okay, why?
Because it was like the most uplifting, and the other was really dark and like unethical. I feel like it
Okay.
set me against them.
Yeah, I think, you know, in campaigns where they're just like smear ads, and I feel like there's a lot more smear ads in this last maybe I just think that because those are the ones that like I pay attention to because you're like, right? Like they're very shocking, but there are some positive ads where they're just positive, right? But these are just the ones I chose, and but definitely that positive spin makes us feel better and happier about voting for someone. Yeah, Jasmine.
I feel like just the last two, I feel like they were more put together than the first two.
Okay.
And so, like, I can see from, like, the Democrat side that that's it looks like a pretty good, like, ad. Because it's, like, it's well put together and it's got, like, information. And this one for the Republicans, it's got information and it's, like, it's well made.
Okay, yeah, more things that we can look at, and like why we should vote for that person, and then just put together better. Hannah?
I think the last one could have been better if it was like two separate ads.
Okay.
It was just kind of like 2 points into one ad, so it was a little confusing.
Yeah. I feel like sometimes I see essays like this where I have like 2 points, but they're not connected well to each other, so we need those like transitions. I feel like this ad may have been better if they then had Trump speaking, right? Because then it's like, oh yeah, look, he speaks with more power than that, but also when he speaks, people don't like that. So maybe they chose not to put that in. Or if they were showing actions of Joe Biden and then actions of Trump, but they just kind of felt a little disjointed and could have been more effective if there had been a connector piece. Anyone else want to say what they liked the best? Well, not like the best, but thought was most effective? I'll just have to read what you thought was most effective. Get excited for that. Bonus ad, you do not have to analyze this. This is potentially the worst ad ever made. It was during the Obama versus McCain election, and it is a pro-McCain ad. And I'm having to tell you because it's so poorly done. So, it's not even on Living Room Candidate because I don't know, maybe they just thought it was too bad to recognize, but it was a legit ad. Okay, so
that in 2008 the world will be blessed. They will call him the One.
A nation healed, a world repaired. We are the ones we've been waiting for.
And he has anointed himself, ready to carry the burden of the One. To quote Barack, I have become a symbol of America, returning to our best traditions. He can do no wrongs.
Do you have any doubts?
Never. Can you see the light?
A light will shine down from somewhere. It will light upon you. You will experience an epiphany. And you will say to yourself, I have to vote for Barack.
And the world shall receive his blessings.
This is the moment when the rise of the oceans began to sow and our planet began to heal.
Barack Obama may be the One, but is he ready to lead?
All right, there you go. So I don't really know what their their intention was
What
there.
was that?
Exactly. Yeah, it's different, right? I love that Moses like but you like don't even realize it's like anti-Obama until then you're like, wait, oh, what? Right? Yeah.
You can tell.
It kind of like
Yeah,
makes
maybe.
Obama look better.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there were kind of maybe some undertones where they're like, he thinks he can do no wrong, and maybe like he thinks he's Jesus, and then people don't like that when you like think that you're as good as Jesus because no one can be as good as a perfect person, right? So maybe some undertones, but definitely made me think like he actually seems like a cool dude, and then they're like, but is he ready to lead? You're like, yes. I don't know. It was just really weird. I especially like the Moses 10 Commandments scene. That was delightful. So, whoever made those ads, not so great. Okay, so you'll turn that in on Canvas, and then I want to talk to you a little bit about your choice speech outline and then body paragraph, which we'll be going over next time in class, but you will just do by your Wednesday savvy. So on the overview, you can click on it there or just right here. Outlining is incredibly important. I think that it is like super underrated, like lots of people don't talk about it, but it is like one of the most valuable parts of organizing your writing because it gives you kind of a like play-by-play what you're going to do while writing versus if you don't have an outline, you're just trying to write the essay. It can be very difficult to remember things that you've annotated and points that you're making, and it doesn't feel as cohesive sometimes. So you're going to write an outline for this speech, and it will be due by like the 20th / like turn it in. Okay. Online, there is, do I already have this open? Like a colored like in color version of the paragraph that I'll show you, so you can kind of see what's going on in the paragraph. The requirements for the speech are at the top. So it'll be 4 to 5 pages, most likely, because you'll want intro paragraph, concluding, but then remember your body paragraphs for this class are like a page, okay? So you should have lots of things to talk about. It's got deadlines up here, so your complete first draft will be due when I see you next on the 26th, and we'll do some peer editing on that day. Then you'll make some improvements and revisions, and then you'll turn in your final draft on the 30th. So right before Halloween. Not that that's even relevant, but how exciting. It's got some suggested organization, so an intro, concluding, and then 4 body paragraphs. I think an easy way to organize this is looking, okay, what's his main purpose, what are some sub-purposes, and then talking about the rhetorical choices that support those sub-purposes. Here's some recommendations of just good things to remember as you're going through. So again, focus on the purpose of the speech. Don't get lost in other things that you notice going on. Like here's his purpose and what is supporting that purpose. And then quote abundant detail. So make sure that you're using lots of details and things that you notice in quotes from the text to help you. And then also, do not try to write about every rhetorical strategy you encounter, just those ones that are more specific to the purpose. Because when you're annotating, what you're doing is you're digging in and finding everything that you can. But then sometimes you'll find that like, okay, yeah, he made that choice, but it's not really doing much for his purpose. It's just like a choice that he made. And so you want to focus on the most effective. You don't have to talk about everything you found because that doesn't lend itself to as effective as an argument. So also on here is this page that has like MLA formatting detailed for you. So if you've forgotten how to do that, notes on how and what it should look like. We'll talk about that in a second. And then here's the example outline. It's based on I have a dream speech because you guys have read that, so I thought it would make more sense to look at one that you know a little bit about. In your intro, so you put kind of your major paragraphs are each one big Roman numeral, and then underneath it are your subpoints, right? So in your intro, you want to give a little bit of context about the speech. So remember that the I Have a Dream speech was given in DC, that it was part of the civil rights movement, that he's a minister, anything that would tie into your purpose. And then the thesis You'll notice that I don't detail every rhetorical device that he's using, because what I'm doing is I'm like, here's his purpose, and then here are some of his parts of getting to that purpose, and then in my body paragraphs, I'm going to detail more the rhetorical strategies that he's using to then convey that purpose. So the first one, like in the thesis, it says, in his I Have a Dream speech, King instills a sense of urgency in his audience, calling for long-promised civil rights to be delivered now, and inspiring the country to unify in delivering its promise of equality to all people. So main purpose is to get those long-promised civil rights to be delivered now, and he does that by instilling urgency and then also calling for unity to unite under that purpose. So then, in my body paragraphs, and I think the easiest way to kind of organize this for your speech is to chunk it into sections and then just talk about it section by section and how he's building his point. Because when you're making a speech, you're thinking organizationally, what foundations do I need to lay, and then how can I build on that most effectively to lead to my ultimate point and climax, right? So if you talk about it, his purpose, and then go section by section, how he's creating that can be a really good way to organize your thoughts and what he's doing. So the first section of this and the first part of my essay, so like my first body paragraph, is going to talk about how justice is already there. So he already convinces them that like, you are owed this, right? And in that paragraph, I'm going to talk about the many allusions that he makes. So he makes a lot of allusions to justify why they have already been granted freedom. And then also the check analogy, right? So those are some rhetorical choices he makes. And then I'll connect that to like unity and that urgency in his audience. Then he creates a sense of urgency where it needs to happen now. So at first he's like, you're owed this, and that kind of makes you feel like, oh, why isn't this happening? And then he's going to be like, okay, urgency. So he uses a ton of anaphora in this section. So I would talk about those. And then he also uses imagery where he has negative imagery juxtaposed against this idea of like a dream that he has, right? Then he's going to acknowledge the suffering of his audience. So he does that to kind of be like, I'm not being callous, and just be like, do it now and follow your fearless leader. But he acknowledges that to get him on his side. So he has anaphora connecting suffering to Christ, details and imagery of suffering. And then he uses in the next section a hopeful tone. So he's got use of like, this is an allusion to a song, and then this is from that song, so lots of repetition, and again that juxtaposing imagery against the dream. Okay, and then finally, in his conclusion, he talks about how change will happen and moves them to start acting. Okay, so I've kind of outlined my major paragraphs. It's not like super detailed, but I'm not like listing all of my evidence ever, but I'm just generally, here's what I'm going to talk about. And most outlines for like college courses and everything are like about a page. I once had a professor who, she was like retiring the next term, so I think she was like lazy a little bit, but she was like, just write the outline for the paper, so just make it a really good outline, and I won't make you write the paper. And I was like, excellent. But so it's really important to know how to outline, because who knows, you might have a lazy professor too one day who just asked for an excellent outline of what you would have written, and then probably doesn't even grade it anyway. Okay, you'll also want to write by next time a sample body paragraph, and we'll project them. I have, this one is color-coded, and it has like the key at the bottom. I think the only thing it doesn't have is red, and red is just the connection to the paragraph that would go before it, right, that I'm not showing. Because when you're writing an essay, you really want to weave things together. It should feel not like the last ad we watched, right, where it was like disjointed, right, and like felt like there were two different ads. You want it to feel like a cohesive paper, even though you're talking about a lot of different things within that speech, okay? So you'll notice that there's like, the green is the analysis, and light blue is transition, dark blue is like my topic and closing sentences, purple are the rhetorical choices, and orange is the textual evidence. So there's a lot of blending for the most part. Sometimes your analysis sections are going to be a little bit bigger, but as you're writing, you really want to blend that evidence and analysis together so that it feels more cohesive. When you were freshmen, if I had you as a freshman, we talked kind of more about paragraphs in a you're younger and need more help way, where you're like, okay, here's your topic sentence, evidence, commentary, right? And they kind of felt separate. But as you become more proficient and become real writers, right? You're going to be blending those things because that's what they do, and it's more convincing when you blend them together, because then your analysis is kind of flowing through the whole entire thing instead of feeling like this chunk after this other chunk, right? Okay, so this says, after arguing for the urgency of equality and justice now, so I'm like, here's what I talked about in this last paragraph. King must walk a fine line between quelling potential violence from audience members who feel justified in retaliating because of their suffering, like Malcolm X and his followers, and motivating those who may wish to quit altogether because of that same pain and exhaustion. So he's navigating that fine line between like quelling and also motivating. It's kind of hard, right? Because you got some people who are going to be like, okay, fine, we need it now, I'm going to punch someone in the face and get it, right? And then the other people who are like, if I have to do it non-violently, that's just like too much work and I'd rather just not. Thus, in this section of the speech, King cautions members of the movement not to drink from the cup of bitterness and hatred, but instead fight peacefully and relentlessly for their rights. So I'm going to talk about both of those things and how he's doing that in this section. Using an inspirational tone and words and phrases, so these are rhetorical choices that he's making, such as high plane of dignity and discipline, majestic heights, creative protest, and soul force, King inspires his audience to rise above the marvelous new militancy in the civil rights community and choose the nonviolent, more Christian path instead. So this can be an effective way to list your evidence if you're showing a pattern by just pulling all the patterns kind of together at once in little chunks instead of a giant chunk where you're having to break it down for multiple things, just like stealing those words and phrases if you're talking about diction or if you're talking about imagery, just little bits and pieces and listing them all together so they can see that pattern. In so doing, King creates an emotional desire for a higher road in this audience. However, King also understands that there are many in his audience who will hear this plea for nonviolence and want to quit altogether rather than risk further suffering for something that seems constantly beyond their reach. King's followers are already exhausted, and so within the same section, he consoles his listeners by acknowledging their pain in a way that encourages them to keep fighting. Using the anaphora of "we shall never be satisfied," he creates a list of offenses and sufferings experienced by his audience. They have been the victims of the horrors of police brutality, turned away from motels while their bodies are heavy with the fatigue of travel, and denied the vote. His use of the words horrors, heavy, and fatigue show that King understands the extremity of the wrongs committed against his followers. And yet, by beginning this list with "we shall never be satisfied," he unites them under the pronoun "we" and tells them what to feel, dissatisfaction, and pushes them to use this feeling as impetus to fight until justice rolls down like waters and righteousness like a mighty stream. So I've pulled here, like the phrase is the list that he's creating, but then in my commentary, I'm explaining like the individual words in there that are creating this. So sometimes if you list it, you still want to break it down for your reader and analyze what those choices are actually doing. Because I feel like if I just listed this, it doesn't necessarily show that he understands the wrong. So he just like, here's your list of offenses, but those particular words are important in that. With this Old Testament allusion, their fight becomes biblical. So this right here, this is from like Isaiah. Super challenging, kind of prophetical. So with this Old Testament allusion, their fight becomes biblical and their ultimate triumph feels godly and inevitable. When King again acknowledges their suffering in narrow jail cells and storms of persecution, he connects their suffering to Christ, calling unearned suffering as Christ suffered redemptive, and thus giving them a reason to continue engaging in the fight for civil rights both peacefully and relentlessly. So this connects kind of up back here to what I was talking about and closes that paragraph. Did you?
I don't think that's quite connecting to Christ. I thought it was Paul when I read that section. I don't recall like Christ ever having a storm. Oh, I guess, yeah.
Well, I think, like Paul is kind of a microcosm of Christ in some ways. So I think you could say that that's a biblical allusion, but it's also Christ. He like quelled storms. His whole life was kind of this storm. But definitely Paul experienced this too. Yeah, so maybe if I wanted to be more specific there, I could say like, to Paul, who was a follower of Christ. Yeah, good point. Some of you are going to be better writers than me, but that is okay, because I think you can still learn from talking with other people. Other questions? Okay, so you're going to do that. You don't have to color code it. That's just for your own need help or whatever. And then make your outline. Okay, so do that outline first and then a body paragraph, because I think that makes more sense, but you do you. Okay, any questions about what is expected from you at home? Okay, I also decided not to do the second inaugural address because you guys were just gonna have to watch that at home, and I figured it might be better bang for your buck just to really focus on this choice analysis essay. So if you are feeling slighted and you really want to read that, go for it. It's excellent, but I just made an executive decision not to have you turn that in, okay? So hopefully no one's really bummed about that. You can see the sadness in your eyes. Okay, cool. Then yeah, that is it for today. So you can remember to email me with any questions that you have, etc. And this